Hello, everyone. Welcome back to FluentCast Studio. I'm so excited you're here with us today. How's everyone doing?
Hey there, it's great to be here again. You know what? I had the most interesting conversation in English this morning, and I realized how many times I used the word would.
Oh, really? That's actually perfect timing because that's exactly what we're talking about today. The word would is everywhere in English, but so many learners find it confusing.
Absolutely. And I remember when I was learning English, I always wondered when to use would instead of will or other words. It was really tricky.
I totally get that. So today, we're going to make would super clear for you. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly when and how to use would in everyday conversations. You'll sound so much more natural.
That's right. We're going to cover three main ways people use would every single day. And here's a question for you listeners. Do you find would confusing? Have you ever wondered when to use it? Let us know in the comments below.
Yes, please share your thoughts with us. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Simple English Talks. We post new lessons every week to help you speak English naturally and confidently.
All right, let's dive right in and discover how would can transform your English conversations.
So let's start with probably the most common way you'll use would in daily life. We use would to make polite requests and offers. It makes you sound friendly and respectful, not demanding.
Exactly. The basic structure is really simple. For requests, you say, would you plus the base verb, like, would you help me? For offers, it's, would you like plus a noun or verb, like, would you like some coffee?
Perfect explanation. Now, why is this so important? Well, if you just say, help me, or do you want coffee, it can sound a bit direct or even rude sometimes, especially with people you don't know well.
Right. Let me give you some everyday examples. At a restaurant, you might hear, would you like something to drink? At work, someone might ask, would you help me with this report? With friends, you could say, would you come to my party on Saturday?
These are so natural. I use these every single day. Just yesterday, my neighbor asked me, would you mind watching my cat this weekend? See how polite that sounds?
Oh, that's a great example. Would you mind is super useful. It's even more polite than just would you. Now, listeners, can you think of a situation where you'd need to make a polite request in English? Try to make a sentence with would you right now.
Great practice idea. Now, let's talk about the negative form, because this is important too. If someone offers you something and you want to say no politely, you can say, I wouldn't like that, thank you. Or more commonly, no thank you, I'm fine.
And if you're asking someone not to do something politely, you can say, would you mind not smoking here? Or would you please not talk so loudly? See how much nicer that sounds than just saying, don't smoke here?
Absolutely. The word would is like a magic word that makes everything sound friendlier. Here's a tip. Whenever you're about to ask someone to do something, just add would you at the beginning and you'll sound more polite automatically.
That's such practical advice. So to summarize this first section, use would to make requests and offers that sound polite and natural. It's your key to being friendly in English conversations, whether you're at work, at a restaurant, or talking with friends.
Now, let's move to the second really important use of would. This one's super interesting. We use would when we talk about imaginary situations and things that aren't real right now.
This is where would gets really fun. The structure here is if plus past tense, then would plus base verb. For example, if I had more money, I would travel the world. Notice how we're talking about something that's not true right now.
Exactly. I'm not rich right now, but I'm imagining what I would do if I were rich. This is called the second conditional, but don't worry about the grammar name. Just remember, you're talking about dreams, wishes, or situations that aren't real.
Let me give you more real-life examples. If I were taller, I would play basketball. If it rained tomorrow, I would stay home and watch movies. If I spoke perfect English, I would apply for that international job.
Oh, I love these. Here's one I say all the time. If I had more free time, I would learn to play the guitar. You know what? This is actually how friends have casual conversations about their dreams and wishes.
So true. Imagine you're chatting with a friend over coffee. You might ask them, "What would you do if you won the lottery?" And they might answer, "I would buy a big house and quit my job." This is normal, everyday conversation.
Now, here's something important for you to practice. The formal way is to say if I were, not if I was, especially when talking about yourself. Like, if I were the boss, I would change the rules. But honestly, in casual conversation, many native speakers say if I was too.
That's a great point about formal versus informal. In a job interview or formal writing, stick with if I were. With friends, either one is fine. Can you try making your own sentence? Think about something you wish were different and use if I plus would. Write it in the comments.
Yes, please share your sentences. Now, let's look at the negative form. You can say, if I didn't have to work tomorrow, I wouldn't sleep until noon. Or, if it weren't so cold, I wouldn't go for a walk. See how we're using wouldn't to show what we wouldn't do?
Here's a super useful tip for remembering this. First, think of something that's not true now. Second, use if plus past tense to set up that imaginary situation. Third, use would to say what you do in that imaginary world. Easy, right?
That's such a clear way to explain it. Let me give you one more everyday example. My friend always says, if my apartment were bigger, I would get a dog. She really wants a dog, but her place is too small. That's the perfect use of would for imaginary situations.
Perfect example. So remember, whenever you're dreaming, wishing, or talking about situations that aren't your current reality, would is your best friend. It helps you express hopes, dreams, and hypothetical scenarios in natural English.
All right, now for the third way we use would, and this one surprises a lot of learners. We use would to talk about past habits and things we used to do regularly.
Yes, this is especially common when people share memories or tell stories about the past. The structure is simple. Would plus base verb. For example, when I was a child, I would visit my grandmother every weekend.
I love this use of would because it makes storytelling so much more vivid and natural. It's similar to used to, but it sounds a bit more nostalgic and storytelling-like. You could say, I used to visit my grandmother, or I would visit my grandmother, and both are correct.
Let me share some personal examples. When I talk about my childhood, I often say, every summer, my family would go to the beach. We would build sandcastles and swim all day. My dad would always cook fish for dinner.
Oh, that's lovely. See how would appears multiple times when you're telling a story? That's very natural. Here's another example. In college, my roommate and I would stay up late talking. We would order pizza at midnight. We would laugh about everything.
Beautiful examples. Now, here's an important tip about when to use this. Would, for past habits, works best with action verbs, not state verbs. You can say, I would play soccer every day, but you wouldn't usually say, I would be happy. For that, you'd say, I was happy or I used to be happy.
That's a crucial distinction. So think about actions people did repeatedly, not feelings or states. Things like, she would always arrive early. They would never miss a class. He would call his mom every Sunday.
Exactly. And this is so useful in real conversations. When you're sharing memories with friends or telling someone about your past, using would makes you sound like a native speaker. Can you think of something you did regularly in the past? Try making a sentence with would and share it in the comments.
Great practice suggestion. Now, the negative form is wouldn't. For example, when I was younger, I wouldn't eat vegetables. I wouldn't listen to my parents. I wouldn't go to bed early. All of these show repeated actions in the past that you didn't do.
And here's a cultural note. When older people talk about the good old days, they often use would a lot. Like, back in my day, we would walk to school. We would play outside until dark. We wouldn't stay inside on our phones.
That's so true. My grandfather talks exactly like that. He always says, when I was young, we would work hard all day. We wouldn't complain about anything. It's a very natural way to reminisce about the past. Okay, now let's talk about some common mistakes that learners make with would. Don't worry, we've all made these mistakes. I definitely did when I was learning, and they're totally fixable.
Absolutely. The first common mistake is using would for future plans that are already decided. Some learners say, tomorrow I would go to the doctor. But this is wrong. When you have a definite plan, you should say, tomorrow I will go to the doctor, or tomorrow I'm going to the doctor.
Great point. Remember, would is for polite situations, imaginary situations, or past habits. It's not for definite future plans. So, incorrect, next week I would travel to Paris. Correct, next week I will travel to Paris, or next week I'm traveling to Paris.
The second mistake is forgetting to use the base verb after would. Some people say, I would going to the store, or she would to help you. But the correct way is, I would go to the store, and she would help you. No ing and no to after would.
Yes, this is super important. The structure is always would plus base verb. Think of it as would plus go, would plus eat, would plus help, would plus buy. Never would going or would to go. Can you practice this right now? Make a correct sentence with would and write it in the comments.
The third mistake happens with hypothetical situations. Some learners mix up the verb tenses and say things like, if I will have money, I would buy a car. But this doesn't work. The correct way is, if I had money, I would buy a car. Remember, use past tense after if when you're talking about imaginary situations.
This one trips up so many people. Here's the wrong way. If it will rain, I would stay home. Here's the right way. If it rained, I would stay home. Or if it rains, I will stay home. See the difference? Don't mix will and would in the same conditional sentence.
And here's the fourth mistake, overusing would in every sentence. Some learners think adding would makes everything sound more polite, so they say things like, I would am a teacher, or yesterday I would went to the store. But these are completely wrong.
Yes, I've heard this before. Would is not a magic word you can just sprinkle everywhere. You can't use it with am or with past tense verbs like went. Don't say, I would love pizza when you mean I love pizza right now. Only use would in the 3 ways we taught you today.
Remember, making mistakes is completely normal, and it's actually how you learn. Every time you catch yourself making one of these mistakes, you're getting better. The key is to practice, notice when you make errors, and correct yourself. That's how you improve.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid to use would just because you might make a mistake. The more you practice, the more natural it will become. Just keep these common errors in mind, and you'll be using would perfectly in no time.
So let's review those 4 mistakes one more time. Don't use would for definite future plans. Always use the base verb after would. Use past tense after if in hypothetical sentences. And don't overuse would where it doesn't belong. Got it? You're doing great.
Now it's time for some interactive practice. We're going to give you some situations, and you choose the correct sentence. Are you ready? Let's do this together.
Situation 1. You're at a coffee shop and you want to order politely. Which is better? A, give me a coffee, or B, would you give me a coffee, please? What do you think?
The answer is B. Would you give me a coffee, please? Sounds much more polite. Even better would be, could I have a coffee, please? Or I would like a coffee, please. Try saying one of these out loud right now.
Situation 2. You're talking about an imaginary situation. Which is correct? A, if I will win the lottery, I would buy a house. Or B, if I won the lottery, I would buy a house.
The answer is B. If I won the lottery, I would buy a house. Remember, use past tense after if when it's imaginary. Now you try making your own sentence about winning the lottery. What would you do?
Situation 3. You're talking about your childhood. Which sounds more natural? A, when I was young, I played soccer every day. Or B, when I was young, I would play soccer every day.
Actually, both are correct. But B sounds a bit more storytelling-like and nostalgic. Native speakers often use would when sharing memories because it emphasizes that it was a repeated habit in the past.
Situation 4. You're making a polite offer to a guest. Which is better? A, do you want some tea? Or B, would you like some tea?
The answer is B. Would you like some tea? Sounds much more polite and welcoming. You could also say, I would love to offer you some tea, or would you care for some tea? Practice offering something to an imaginary guest right now.
Last situation. You're talking about tomorrow's plans. Which is correct? A, tomorrow I would go shopping, or B, tomorrow I will go shopping.
The answer is B. Tomorrow I will go shopping. Remember, don't use would for definite future plans. Would is for imaginary or hypothetical situations, not things you're definitely going to do.
Great job practicing. Remember, the goal isn't to be perfect. It's to communicate and sound natural. The more you practice these situations in real life, the more confident you'll become. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn.
Wow, we've covered so much today. I'm really excited about what you've learned. Let's do a quick review of everything we talked about.
Yes, so today we learned 3 main ways to use would in everyday English. First, we use would for polite requests and offers, like, would you help me? Or would you like some coffee? This makes you sound friendly and respectful.
Second, we use would for imaginary and hypothetical situations. When you're talking about dreams, wishes, or things that aren't true right now, you say things like, if I had more time, I would learn Spanish. This is super common in everyday conversations.
And third, we use would to talk about past habits and repeated actions, especially when telling stories. Like, when I was a child, I would visit my grandparents every summer. This makes your storytelling sound natural and nostalgic.
You also learned about common mistakes to avoid, like using would for definite future plans or forgetting to use the base verb after would. Remember, practice makes progress, not perfection.
So, here's my question for you. Which use of would do you think you'll practice first? The polite requests, the imaginary situations, or the past habits? Let us know in the comments.
Yes, please share with us. And if you found this lesson helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Simple English Talks so you don't miss our future episodes. We have so many more great lessons coming your way.
Also, try to use would in your daily English conversations this week. Start with just 1 or 2 sentences. Maybe make a polite request at a coffee shop or tell someone about something you would do in your childhood. Every bit of practice helps.
We are so proud of you for learning with us today. Remember, English learning is a journey, and every step you take makes you better. You're doing an amazing job, and we believe in you.
Thank you so much for joining us today at FluentCast Studio. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep enjoying your English learning journey. See you next time.